So the Supreme Court just ruled that cities can now start sweeping homeless encampments again. Let's watch a quick video.
All right, let's get to Ron now. Hey, Ron.
Well, another busy day for the U.S. Supreme Court. One of the opinions they just released focused on what has been a huge issue here in the Metro Phoenix area, homelessness. In a 6-3 ruling, the court decides that cities can, in fact, enforce bans on homeless people sleeping outdoors, on sidewalks, in a place like the Zone, even if there aren't an exact number of beds available for all homeless people within a community. It reverses a ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco. So a group of leaders had argued that ruling made it harder for them to simply allow police and city officials to manage outdoor encampments that were popping up in public spaces across the 9 western states from Washington to California to Arizona. Some homeless advocates worry that allowing cities to tell people they have to move along could criminalize homelessness and make the crisis worse. The case is the most significant to come before the High Court in decades on that issue.
6-3. Jeez. Supreme Court just making some decisive moves. This one, this was the right call. Clearly, this is the right call. Now, the Ninth District Court, what they said is it's cruel and unusual punishment for people to just be sleeping outside and get arrested for that. Well, that's not really the crux of the problem. The crux of the problem is that you've got a whole bunch of whacked out, drugged out, mentally ill people who don't want to move into shelter. So even if the opportunity is there for them to take shelter, they don't take it. And when that happens, there's this whole thing of, well, there's not enough room at the shelter. Well, these folks aren't going to go anyway, right? They're not going to go. So now the individual cities have the ability to say, well, we've offered you shelter. We have it for you. You got to go. We're sweeping this. And so many of the West Coast cities have been reluctant to do sweeps because based on the Ninth Circuit court ruling, it's illegal. I can't have that. Cruel and unusual punishment. What is cruel and unusual is letting people that have given up on themselves die on the sidewalk in a tent. That is cruel and unusual punishment. We see that all the time in Seattle. We Heart Seattle, Andrea Suarez, I think they've come across 12, 13, 14 bodies. Yeah, bodies in homeless encampments. Allowing people to just die that way, is cruel and unusual. And when these people have given up on themselves and then society and cities essentially have given up on themselves, I mean, let them live wherever. It's all good. It's all good. No, that's not good. That's not good. Let's get into the article. We've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this ruling for quite a while because this is not just a West Coast deal. This is cities all over looking at this as, a starting point. Okay, can we or can't we do sweeps? What's the Supreme Court going to rule? And so Supreme Court on Friday allowed cities to enforce bans on homeless people sleeping outside in public places, ruling along ideological lines that such laws don't amount to cruel and unusual punishment, even in West Coast areas where shelter space is lacking. And what the Grants Pass thing was Grants Pass said, hey, we don't have any shelter. We still want to do sweeps. And a court case came up where, this is cruel and unusual. You're just sweeping us out. You're just moving us around. And Grants Pass said no. And there's another versus Boise versus, I forget what the other court case is, but there's a couple of big court cases out there that cities are looking at. This is one of them. Case is most significant to come before the High Court in decades on the case is the most significant to come before the High Court in decades on the issue and comes as a rising number of people in the U.S. are without a permanent place to live, oftentimes by choice. Let's not get this confused with, I just fell behind on rent. Now, a lot of times it's people who are suffering from depression, suffering from some kind of deal, get hooked on drugs. I get it. Their minds just kind of go, whatever. They give up and they're like, they can't do a job. So then they become homeless. They become addicted to drugs further if they aren't already. And here on the West Coast, I'm from Seattle, we've just become the poster child for how not to handle these situations. Hell, let's just give them a free crack pipe. Let's give them free clean needles. Let's bring tents to them. Let's bring food to them. Let's enable them to do everything they need to do to continue this lifestyle that with fentanyl, it's going to kill them. It's going to kill them. So if that isn't cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know what is. In a 6-3 decision, the high court reversed a ruling by a San Francisco-based appeals court that found outdoor sleeping bans violate the 8th Amendment. Cruel and unusual punishment. If you don't have shelter, then arresting them for just basically being homeless. Now, I covered this topic a while ago, and one of the things that one of the commenters was saying is, if the homeless, if we were banning them for just literally having a pillow and a blanket and living on the sidewalk that way, we're not banning them because they've got a pillow on the sidewalk. No, we want to ban them. We want to sweep them. We want to get them the most help that they can get into treatment, mental treatment, whatever it is, services, whatever, because they're not just putting a pillow down and covering up with a blanket. That is a wild, inaccurate way to portray this situation. No, they're doing drugs. They're doing prostitution. They're doing human trafficking. They're doing stolen goods. They're buying stolen goods, all on public streets and sidewalks. You just see it daily. So Western cities had argued that the ruling made it harder to manage outdoor encampments in public spaces. But homeless advocates said punishing people who need a place to sleep would criminalize homelessness. When asked if these folks would like space and shelter housing, oftentimes they say no. You'll see 45 people get swept. 2 accepts housing. They only want to accept, they don't want to take shelter. They don't want to take temporary. They want long-term. They want their own mini home, their own tiny home, whatever it is. They want their own space so that they can continue their lifestyle of drugs, stolen goods, human trafficking, whatever. They can continue that in those shelters. Not all of them, but such a high percentage that's why these cities need to be able to do these sweeps, because so much of this is based strictly on drugs and the drug culture that you've got going on. And here's how I would say anybody that chooses to oppose me on this, go to a homeless encampment, spend an hour there, spend a couple of hours there, go to a homeless encampment midnight on a Saturday. Go there and you tell me what you see. You tell me what you hear. And you'll hear folks in the homeless encampment talk about women screaming in the middle of the night. Because, it's not going well for them, right? This is a common occurrence. You see this day in, day out. And by letting these people just live in these squalid conditions, it's not helping anybody, especially the people living there. In California, which is home to 1/3 of the country's homeless population, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom said the decision gives state and local officials authority to clear unsafe encampments from the streets. Well, gruesome Newsom, you've got some work to do now there, son. You need to get out there and, clear some encampments. How about all of Skid Row? How about that 38 unit luxury apartment complex? It's the one that Trump was talking about. They're putting homeless people up in LA. 100% true, 100% accurate. I mean, we've talked about that apartment building, that development. I mean, that thing is just going to get ripped apart, absolutely torn apart. But hey, it's got meeting areas. It's got a dog walk area. It's got views, got big city views. Yeah, that complex is not going to age well. So this decision removes the legal ambiguities that have tied the hands of local officials for years. It does. So are the sweeps going to just start up like that? No, they're not. They're not. Because oftentimes in these cities, you've got all these advocates that are saying, just give them a tent. It'll be fine. Just give them a clean needle. It'll be fine. Just, give them food, whatever. And you find the food rotten. I mean, how many times have we looked at that when in a homeless encampment? I think I saw footage the other day of when I was out with Andrea Suarez of We Heart Seattle and looking in a cooler, and it's like, oh yeah, here's a bunch of food. There's food from the food pantry. I mean, you're supposed to be helping people, and it just goes to rot because these people are more they're trying to get drugs. They're not trying to get food. They don't really care about food. That's why they're so skinny, right? Justice Neil Gorsuch acknowledged those concerns in the opinion he wrote for the majority. The justice that wrote the decision, he said he suggested that people who have no choice but to sleep outdoors could raise that as a necessity defense if they are ticketed or otherwise punished for violating a camping ban. You know what? Ticketing these people or trying to punish them or put them in jail, it's going to do absolutely nothing. But sweeps do help because they clean up the area. They get it back to ground zero so you can do it all over again. But what it does is it sends a signal that this is not acceptable. And if you sweep an area long enough, folks will not come back the same way that they have in the past. We've seen that time and time and time again. And then if you keep up, it basically just maintain, hey, you can't be here. You can't just pitch a tent anywhere you want. That is the pushback that these cities need to have. Oftentimes they don't have the police resources to do it. And you've got all these advocates that are just, pushing, oh, it's okay to be in a tent. It's all right. No, it's not. It's not. Homeless advocates, on the other hand, have said that allowing cities to punish people who need a place to sleep, that is not all they need. They don't just need a place to sleep. They are bringing with them an entire lifestyle based on drugs. So those who have an entire lifestyle based on drugs would ultimately make the crisis worse. I don't agree. No. Cities have been allowed to regulate encampments under a U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling, but couldn't completely bar people from sleeping outdoors. Now they can. Good. Because you need to be able to regulate your parks, your outdoor areas. You can't have people just sleeping willy-nilly wherever because they bring with them all the shenanigans that we see on a daily basis. Sleep is a biological necessity, not a crime, said Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Homelessness is a reality for so many Americans. Yes, and so many of them make it a decision to be there by choice. The folks that want to get out of homelessness, hey, they're working on it. All right. I get that. But those are not the ones who decline shelter when they're given it to them, when the offers are made. Those are not the ones. The folks that aren't taking offers of shelter and the ones that need to be swept, those are the ones that are involved with the lifestyle where they have made it a choice. Yeah, I don't want to work. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to be responsible to the man. I just want to do drugs. I just want to have a lifestyle where everybody kowtows to me and everything that I want to do, all the shenanigans that I want to do. And West Coast cities all up and down the, left-hand upper USA. That's what they're doing. From Vancouver all the way down to the southern border, right? San Diego. Just live wherever. It'll be fine. Oregon has separate legal limits on how cities can manage encampments, so the ruling likely won't have effect in Portland. Spokesperson for the mayor's office said Seattle officials have expected a limited impact. They've already been doing sweeps in Seattle. They just swept another one, another encampment that ironically is just right next door to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Is it just the Bill Foundation now? I know Melinda's out, right? Melinda's out. Sounds like Bill. He just kind of checked out of that marriage and said, see ya. So the city that this kind of came up in, Grants Pass mayor, Sarah Bristol, she told the Associated Press the city will not immediately start enforcing those local ordinances. It's going to take time. But now, if an encampment gets bad enough, they will have the legal right and they won't have to worry about getting tied up in court over this ridiculousness coming out of San Francisco. The lawsuit was about whether cities have a right to enforce camping restrictions in public spaces, and I believe that Grants Pass will be able to reclaim our city parks for recreation. Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, this is, if you heard this 25 years ago, you'd be like, I'm sorry, the Supreme Court is ruling on what? We're talking about what? Cities having the ability to sweep their own parks? I'm sorry, how did that ever get started in the first place? When did we just start allowing people to just, and then you'd show them footage of just, up and down streets, city parks, Echo Park in LA, Skid Row, the Tenderloin, entire huge areas where homelessness is just allowed to just absolutely take over. Now, can you expect anything from this in a city like San Francisco? Can you expect anything like this to positively impact Los Angeles? Los Angeles right now, they've got a deal. So the Sunset Boulevard, there's a studio there, famous studio, right? Music studio and Sunset Studios. And what the business owners there have done, they put a whole bunch of planters on the sidewalk to deter all of the drug addicted, whacked out mental homeless people that have been absolutely ruining business for that area by camping on the sidewalks, doing their lifestyles of debauchery, screaming at people going by. I mean, just tons and tons and tons of stories of that, the typical stuff in homelessness. Well, the city of LA said, hey, these planters you guys put up, and when the planters were put up, immediately criminal activity, boom, because the people doing the criminal activity are gone. They had to go somewhere else. They can no longer pitch their tent on the sidewalk. When those tents went out, criminal activity dropped, and everybody's happy. But the city of Los Angeles said, oh, you guys didn't have a permit for those planters. We're going to have to take them out. Literally, that is what's going on. Los Angeles business owners, residents, dismayed after city removes homeless encampment measures. It's absolutely absurd. So will a city like LA, will they do anything about it? Nah, probably not. But the cities that do want to enforce their regulations where you can't just pitch a tent wherever, they'll be able to do something. They'll be able to start. Will it be immediate? No. But in Los Angeles, so you didn't have a permit to put a, beautification. Some would say it's hostile architecture where you're putting a planter on the side of the sidewalk so you can't pitch a tent there. I'd much rather have a planter, even if it's got a cactus in it. The ones on Sunset Boulevard, oftentimes they were planted in like a big wooden barrel type planter thing, and they had a cactus in the middle. Pretty tough to put a tent on top of a cactus, right? But it looks so much better. But the city said, oh, you don't have a permit for that. Where's the permit for the people sleeping in their tents, just absolutely destroying the businesses that they're squatting outside of? What about them? Do they have a permit? Oh, no. They have a permit to sell drugs. They have a permit to run prostitution out of those tents. They have a permit to run stolen goods out of those tents. They have a permit for any of that? No. Oh, no, they don't. No. So in a city like LA, don't expect much. But cities that want to go down that road of actually keeping their parks free for their tax-paying citizens to use, this is a big win. So we'll keep up on this one. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next episode. Bye for now.